Right, welcome back. We have um a really interesting presentation. And I know we've been talking a lot about identity, and this one is going to hit identity again, but in maybe a little bit of a different way and a tool that is so powerful that you can use when all of this is going on. So, we're going to be talking about the lie-identity shift and why sometimes when you feel like you're trying to level up, it feels like you're falling apart. And that's a very real piece of any journey where you feel like, why is this happening? I should be feeling better, right? I should be feeling like I'm improving and everything's going great. Why do I feel like I'm actually breaking down? So, we're going to chat through a little bit about this, and we will be talking about butterflies, and it all is connected, I promise. Um, so becoming will feel like you are breaking. And most people think when they're starting to, like I just said, like when they're in this journey, that they're going to feel like empowered and the journey's going to be just super simple and clean and clear cut and exciting and all the things. And I'm not saying that transformation cannot be those things. Um, but what if I told you probably the most important part of transformation actually is this feeling of everything breaking? Because what happens is most people, when it feels like things are breaking or they feel like it's not how it should be, right? Or it's supposed to feel, that's when they quit. That's when they decide, well, maybe this just isn't for me. Like maybe I'm not able to do this. Maybe I'm just not special. And the reality is there's nothing wrong with you. This is just a real piece of when your identity is changing and you are changing and what you're doing is changing. It feels like this moment. So I want you to know if right now, and it's funny because I feel like actually this happens a lot, not at the beginning of your journey, where you feel like sometimes it's like, oh, like things are going really well and I'm doing the things and I am growing. It's when you're almost like this like turning point. And this comes sometimes it is at the beginning of your journey. And I will say this might come more and more times, pop up more times throughout your journey as you continue to level up. So, anywho, let's keep going. What we think, right, is okay, I'm just going to decide, I'm going to take action and I'm going to become. Boom. And I think that's not how identity works. Yes, it's how change works, right? We are changing, we are shifting, we are in this place where um you are evolving, but identity, right? I think there's this piece where there's an old version of us that we are trying to outgrow and a new version of us that we're stepping into. And you think it's wrong when it gets messy, but this is where we have to kind of separate our two identities, right? The lie identity, which is like who you're outgrowing, that version of you that maybe served us in some capacity in the past, but isn't you anymore. That you're like, this isn't what I want to do, who I want to be. And then that's the lie identity. That's not who you really are. It's who you may have been, but not who you are. And then we've got this evolved version of you that you're like working and stepping into. And it's hard and it feels messy. And when we've got these like two opposing identities, that's where it can feel like things are falling apart because you can be in a space of like, why is this just not as like I want to be her? But there's this piece of me that keeps pulling back into that lie identity, that person that's not me anymore. And I think the thing is, when it comes to your identity, The real process is this. Sorry, my like mouse is going really slow. Your brain, your body, your identity will go through this pattern all the time. You will grow, you will break, and you will rebuild. And this will happen over and over and over again. And this is why I want to talk about butterflies. It's, I promise it's connected. Um, but something that we often think about, right? Well, I often think about, probably nobody else does, but I think about, is there's, this process of a caterpillar that's becoming a butterfly, right? And most people kind of, in my opinion, they're like, oh, it's like a cute little caterpillar, and then it becomes a butterfly. And it sounds like this like simple, effortless, easy process, right? It's like nothing crazy happened. It was just once a caterpillar, and now it's a butterfly. But the reality is that's not at all how a caterpillar turns into and evolves into a butterfly. It's actually quite violent. And like I said, that's why I want to talk about it because I think it fits so beautifully when we are talking about this. And so, like I said, basically same thing there. Like you just kind of make it like, ooh, poof, it just evolves into this butterfly. But the reality is this in our journeys, right? We're going to start in a caterpillar state. We are this version of us that we're like, I don't want to be her anymore. This isn't me. I don't want it. And we start here. But the cool thing about like caterpillars and what they do is, and I think most of us may know pieces of this, but they're what they do is when they're little egg, right, and they hatch out, they become the caterpillar and or they are the caterpillar and they eat, right? And they eat and they grow and they eat and they grow, right? And eventually they will grow so much that they shed this layer, right? They shed this layer. And that's like us, right? As we grow, we're shedding these layers that like no longer serve us. We're like, oh yeah, that's not me anymore. That's not what I do anymore. We kind of shed these pieces. And then the caterpillar does this again and again and again. It eats, it grows, it sheds another layer. It eats, it grows, it sheds another layer. It keeps stepping out of these skins that it no longer can fit in anymore. It's outgrown it and it doesn't serve them. And this is where most of us get comfortable because we will shed these things and we're like, oh yeah, I'm doing new things. And and I'm not saying this part doesn't feel hard because when we're stepping, even outgrowing things, it's hard, right? It's not necessarily this easy path. And the thing that we have to remind ourselves is like, we're learning, we're doing, this is the part where we're building new habits, we're shedding behaviors. But the shedding isn't actually the transformation, it's actually preparation for the next stage. And when we're the caterpillar, it's a really beautiful reminder of like, this is where when we are going into the next stage, we're going to see a totally different piece. Because obviously, we know when the caterpillar, what happens is, um, the caterpillar will shed one more layer and become a chrysalis, right? And so that final shedding is the chrysalis. Now, the thing about the caterpillar is a lot of people never really want to leave this phase. They want to stay here because there's still this attachment to that like old identity. They stay here, they might improve their habits, they might tweak their plans, but they're not fully changing that identity. They're still almost in this disconnect of like where they are, who they are, where their journey is and what is next. It's almost like I don't know if I want to touch that yet. I don't know if I want to really jump into her, that next level version. And so the real transformation, right? We all are in that space of like, I want to be the butterfly. I want to be her. I want to be like, I always think of butterflies too, as this like symbol of like freedom and this symbol of like just, beauty and power and like, I mean, freedom is the first word that really comes to mind because it's just like they get to go fly and do their thing and just be, where a caterpillar's on the ground, right? Like a caterpillar's kind of stuck there and it can only go so far, right? Where a butterfly can spread its wings and it can fly distance. And so when we're looking at it, the real transformation is to become the butterfly. But this is the piece that most people don't love to go through is like the chrysalis moment. And so when I say this is where the change actually happens, and where like when we're trying to improve, it can feel like you're breaking apart. It's so real because what actually happens is, like I said, the caterpillar sheds one last time. So the caterpillar like eats, grows, sheds 5+ times. The last time, that's when it sheds and that's when the chrysalis forms. This is not a peaceful process. This is not peaceful. When it does this, it doesn't just like level up. It's not like, cool, the caterpillar's just sleeping in the little cocoon. Negative. What's happening inside that cocoon is that caterpillar is literally releasing, or actually, the chrysalis is now releasing enzymes to literally break its body down. It loses its structure, it loses that identity of the caterpillar. Everything that once made it a caterpillar, no more. And inside this chrysalis, right, it's literally like oozing and becoming this liquidy mess. So there's no shape, no certainty, no control. And if we opened this chrysalis, right, mid transformation, you would not see a beautiful butterfly. You would see, again, this like destruction. It's very violent. It's a breaking down. And when we're thinking about that, that sounds awful, but in order to become the butterfly, it's necessary. There's no way through it, right? And so the beautiful part is, you know, I love thinking about this is like the caterpillar, right? The butterfly was already within. It had everything it needed already there inside the caterpillar. So everything that as it's breaking down the cells, everything that it needs is already there to make it. It just couldn't fully activate it until we dissolved that old identity, right? Like that's what's happening to this caterpillar. The caterpillar is getting dissolved so we can become the butterfly. And this is the real transformation, right? The caterpillar has to decompose so it can become the butterfly. And I know this sounds so brutal, but like we sometimes have to break down in order to be the butterfly. And so the breakdown, right, is what's revealing what's already been within. Like you, even if you're in your caterpillar state, and we constantly go back to the caterpillar state, but there is this piece where that butterfly is already within you. It's not this new identity is already within you. It's not this like separate piece. We just have to break apart that old one, the caterpillar, so that we can fully release her, right? So we can just step into her with full power. So, um, what can happen though is this is what most things can kind of feel like with the chrysalis. Because, like, the chrysalis phase is identity death, right? the loss of this old identity and the building of this new and stepping into her. So this is where the chaos happens. This is where the breakdown happens. This is where Patricia is going to start to ramp up even more than she normally is because your old patterns don't fit anymore, but your new ones aren't set. You feel inconsistent. You feel like you're not doing things well enough, or you feel like you might feel like you're regressing, or you feel like you're not moving forward, or you feel like I should be further ahead, or I feel like this isn't maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. So this is the reality is we don't fully trust ourselves as that new identity. And you start to question everything. And it's almost like I should have just, is this really who I am? Like, do I really believe I can step into this next level? Is it really possible? Because here's the thing, you're not in a place where you can't become her. It's that you are in this chrysalis. You are breaking down the any last strings to that old identity. And you haven't seen this part of the journey before. Or maybe you have in the past, but you haven't walked through it. You went back to that, like, I'm going to stay kind of in my cozy caterpillar state because this feels hard. This doesn't feel like a lot of times it's almost that place where it's like, it shouldn't feel like this. This journey shouldn't feel hard or challenging or like I'm breaking down. And I would have to disagree with you. So, anyway, a lot of times I already said like um Patricia's gonna rattle a lot here. She's gonna tell you your stories. She's gonna tell you a lot of those things that are gonna try to keep you here um as the caterpillar. But that's your brain kind of seeing change and seeing this new identity because new anything new to the brain is kind of like what's going on? Why are we changing? We've been running efficiently. We've been doing this so well for so long. Why would we want to change? Because that's how the brain likes to be. But this is where your journey will feel messy, uncomfortable, and inconsistent. And when the brain sees this threat, we have to remind ourselves like we are entering new territory. Who am I, right? If I'm not who I used to be, who is this person? Who am I becoming? Because a new identity is unknown, right? You don't fully feel comfortable in her yet. So it's unknown, it's uncertain, it's like this iffy territory. And anytime we're in the unknown, that's when our brain will be like, this is not safe. This isn't good. And we know like we're not actually running from a bear right now. We're not running from a tiger. We're golden. But anytime the brain feels unsafe, it's gonna be in a survival state and resist that change, which is why this part is like this almost like you feel like you're fighting against yourself. You're like, I feel like I'm just at war. I want this like coziness, but I want this change. And I just feel like I'm stuck in the middle. Very real. Very real. Now, the stories, the self sabotage, right? This is the stories that keep coming up. And these are where the thoughts start to sometimes spiral and can sometimes lead to like avoidance, self-doubt, those like off screw it moments or overthinking, indecision. And so we really start to just be like, yep, I believe these old stories and old thoughts that Patricia keeps bringing to me, right? And what happens is most people will keep staying here and keep staying stuck because they quit the chrysalis phase. They're like, this just feels so uncozy. And I'm going to be real with you. It feels uncozy. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a real thing. But something that I'm probably going to repeat 300 times, probably not that many, but a couple times, is something I want you to understand about your thoughts. And this is so powerful because we forget this is your first thought that you have, that just immediate thought. That's your first thought, the immediate thought is always your conditioning, how you were raised, right? How you were, it could have been like your parents, it could have been like your friends, your family, other family members, right? It could be in school and coaches, peers, colleagues. All of those thoughts have been ingrained over time. So they are your conditioning. Your first thought will always, always, always be your conditioning. But the cool part is the second thought you have is a choice, and it's your choice. And that is the piece that I so want us to dig into. And I've talked about this in other parts of things, other trainings, because this is where we need a tool to how to manage this chrysalis phase. Because again, your first thought is conditioning, your second thought is a choice. And so anytime it's like, how can we take that control back? Is it possible? Absolutely. We just need the right tool and strategy. And does it take a little bit of work? Yeah, of course. But isn't it worth it? Isn't the work worth it to become the person you know is already within 10,000%, right? So the tool that I absolutely love, and it's something that takes time. And I will say this now, but please know I mean this so sincerely. If you have a thought that you just can't break out of, and I want you to lean into your coaches, or feel free to always message me as well, because this isn't something that your brain is going to just click and be like, oh, I saw this presentation and I got it. It takes a little bit of practice. But I promise you, the more you use this tool, the more you can be able to challenge these thoughts and really start to rewire your brain to be able to move into your butterfly identity. So the tool is a catch, challenge, change. All C's there. Catch, challenge, change. This helps you when you're in your chrysalis phase. It can help you in your caterpillar state. It can also help you in your butterfly state. It can help you at any phase, but especially where you're feeling the breakdown. You're feeling this tug of war, this fight. You're feeling this like dissonance of like who you feel like, like I said, this tug of war of like, I feel like I'm still her, but I don't want to be her. And I'm trying to be her, but I don't feel like I'm her. that's where we want to that's where we want to start using this. And when Patricia is being a beast, this is where we want to challenge her. So this is how you can move forward without keep returning to the caterpillar state, being like, screw this chrysalis phase. I'm just going to go back to the more cozy caterpillar state, because at least I was grounded on the ground, right? At least I knew that world. But then there's a point where you can't grow anymore, right? Like the last phase was that caterpillar, that last shedding was turning into the chrysalis. So if you just stay the caterpillar, there's no more growth. You're going to stay stuck, and there's going to be a piece where you realize like there's more for me. And we know we're not made to be mediocre. So I don't want you to be mediocre. That's where this tool comes in. I'm I'm on it today, guys. I'm on it. So there's obviously three steps. Step one is catch. Now you've heard me say this 3 million times before, but catching is being able to be aware of your first thought. So it's like being able to be like, wow, this thought keeps coming back. I know for me, example, right? I am in prep and doing another competition. And even through prep, right, something that has continued to pop up for me is, and it's one of my, it's very much a deep rooted thought that a lot of my thoughts kind of like merge and sprinkle into this big overarching thought is I'm not good enough, right? And that thought has come up a ton during prep. And as that thought has come up, I've had to work on challenging it, right? Because it's easy for me to have that thought pop up and then it just to ruminate and fester. And then the more it festers, the more the brain is going to find evidence to just be like, yup, here's another example of where you weren't good enough. And here's another one right here. Your brain is so good at that because it's trying to protect you. Now, that thought doesn't serve me. It does not help me stand with confidence. It does not help me stand in my power. So that's not, oh, I don't want to stay there. So the first thing we need to do, right, is this first thought of like, I'm not good enough for my example is conditioning. It's things that I was like either specifically nurtured and taught or like I learned through other people's actions, right? Or I made stories mean about myself. So this is where we have to stop and be like, what are the stories I'm telling myself? What keeps coming up for me? What keeps popping into my brain all the time? What am I thinking and what am I currently believing? Those things are super powerful. Something to note, a thought is a thought. It is not a fact. And that can feel challenging because it feels like a fact, because our brain, like I said earlier, will justify all the things. But just because we think it doesn't mean it's true. So we have to be aware of these thoughts that are trying to hold us on the ground, right? Hold us in that caterpillar state. Because if we can pause and listen and just catch it, right? Like there's nothing crazy with this stuff. It's literally just being like, oh, this thought keeps popping up. That's catching it. It's like, got it. I've got the thought. Um, so we wait, we notice, and we kind of keep seeing what thoughts keep recycling in the brain. So we, instead of just being like, yes, that thought is true, we start going, wow, this is curious. I keep having this thought. That's catch. And sometimes it's, you don't have to be, that's where I'm at now. Like, I'm like, ooh, this is curious. This is interesting. Why is this popping up? Like, there's a reason this is popping up and I'm growing. I realize that now. But like earlier parts of my journey, negative. That's not how I saw it. I was like, this is annoying. This thought. But the fact that we can catch it means that we can do the next part, which is challenge it. And this is probably the last two steps are harder. And that's okay because, like I said, this takes a little bit of practice. But once you start practicing, you get better at it, just like anything. So once we catch it, right, this is where we get to break the thought apart. Because, like I said, just because we think it doesn't mean it's 100% true. So this can feel challenging because the brain is so good at finding evidence to back up that thought. You believe it, you think it, so your brain already has all the evidence stacked for that thought. Now, because we know that not this thought is not 100% true, this is where we have to start looking for evidence against this thought. And this is where, if you really take the opportunity to dive and dig in, and it takes some time. And Lester said, if you can practice this with somebody for a while, you will start being able to see things in a different manner. Or even just being, you might be able to find evidence against your thought, which sounds really crazy, but it's like, I believe this thought, like I'm not good enough. But it's like, well, wait a minute. That's not totally true because I do this and this and this and this. And that's where we have to start kind of seeking a different route in our brain and start teaching it to find other evidence. So we get to separate thought from truth, which is really powerful. Now, the last phase, oh, you've seen this before, but I will go and dig a little bit more into this. I have some examples in a little bit, but I love a good T chart. We can use them for so many things. But what it does is the power of a T chart is that one, we get the thoughts out of our head, right? And anytime we don't get thoughts out of our head, right? A lot of times, if I told you to do this and it, multiply 2,570,000, whatever, by a whole big number, you would be like, please give me a piece of paper, right? And no calculators or phones allowed. But you would do a math problem on a piece of paper, but your own thoughts, it's like we think we can just like do it in the head. And the reality is, a lot of times we need to see things on paper. We need to make it tangible because the thoughts in our head aren't tangible. They're just these fleeting things that pop up and then they kind of go away and they pop up again. And it does feel chaotic. So getting it out of your head and onto paper on a T chart, so powerful. I mean, even just being able to write down the thought you're having, being like, wow, I don't think I realized how much I was thinking this thought. So the T chart is, evidence you have for the thought you're already doing this. So we just write them all down. But this is the one that feels hard. Evidence against your thought. The evidence that you have that can actually say this thought is not totally true. And when we do that, it takes the power away from this thought, which is what we want. We no longer want this thought to have like, right now, it's like you believe it 100%. Even if we can knock that down to like, well, it's still 70% believable, that gives us a 30% wiggle room of like, well, it's not totally believable. It's not all true. There is evidence here that is showing this thought isn't fully here. So when we do that, then what our goal is here's some questions. Sorry. Like it's if you're looking for challenges, like things that's like just what thoughts keep repeating, what identity are you reinforcing, what actions do you keep doing? Um, what would your next level self kind of think? What evidence do you have for your thoughts? Is it true? Is it not true? That kind of thing. But then this is where the real power comes. So we challenge it, but then we get to change it. As we find that these thoughts aren't 100% true, this is where we can actually start changing your brain, changing these stories. And it takes process and a little bit of work, and it's not always easy, but I promise you, once you do it and once you start practicing it, this is where we get to change from that caterpillar and being in that messy dissonance to being able to step into the butterfly, right? Like being able to be her. And so, what we need though is a thought that's not super positive, right? Because if we're super negative right now, and then we try to go super positive, the brain will instantly be like, you liar. Stop lying to me. I know we don't believe that. And so if the brain doesn't find it believable, if the brain doesn't find it realistic, it will reject it. And all it does is push you to that caterpillar state even harder. It makes that thought even stronger. So we don't want to go super crazy. It's not like when I struggled in the past with like, I didn't love myself. I like loathed myself. I couldn't go, oh, I love myself because my brain was like, no, you don't, you liar. Like it didn't do anything. So I had to start in a place with a thought that anytime like I hate myself came up, it was like, no, I don't. I am Sierra because that at the time, I know that's not anything crazy or mind blowing, but that was the thought that was believable and realistic because my brain couldn't fight it. I am Sierra. I am. That is who I am, period. So my brain wasn't like, no, you're not, it couldn't fight it, right? There's no fight. So if we don't, if we like look at this picture, the biggest thing with changing is when your old thought comes up, because it is like the thought is going to come up. But like I said before, that first thought is your conditioning. The second thought is a choice. And the choice is when we choose to practice changing it with a new thought. And so that's the power. You can say, no, that's not true. I don't hate myself. I am Sierra, right? And then it turned into like, I do love myself. And I can be in the really super positive thing because my brain no longer rejects it. I'm in a happier, better place. So we need a thought always. When we're changing these thoughts, it has to be realistic and believable. Now, with this, I kind of already said this. So, biggest thing is with the stories is just remind yourself that it's going to take practice to change your thoughts. Like you can't just be like one time or think like, oh, one time um this thought pops up all the time for me and then I just this one time have to be like, ooh, new thought, I changed it. That's not going to be enough. Just like that old thought has had lots of repetition, lots and lots and lots of repetition, your new thought needs lots and lots of repetition. So, this is where, when you're changing your thoughts, just know the first thought is going to come up and it's not going to just go away. It's going to pop up, and then we have the second thought ready to go to challenge it and to change it. And so over time, you will notice you don't have that like automatic negative thought. Your new thought will be more embedded in more and more and more over time. So here's some scenarios. And I have the scenario and the thought, and then I will have after this the T chart. And so I've already filled it out. And obviously, this is like some examples. It's not perfect because if it was more perfect and individual in person, like each, like a real person, um, there's a lot more we could dive into. Like I know with my clients, I've dug into lots of different things with this, and it's also very personal about like their past and where they've been and who they're becoming and all of that. So just know maybe these are a little generic. So, um, when it comes to your thoughts, don't feel like if you don't have all the perfect things, that's okay. Like I said, I am always happy to work with it through, like work through it with you because that can be really powerful, especially like you're going to be really good at challenging but when you challenge for, you're like, ooh, I have tons of evidence for this thought. Like I can just be like, yep, this is why it's true. This is why it's true, right? But finding against can be harder. And your coach can definitely take more of a bird's eye view and be like, well, wait a minute, time out. Now, you can also take a bird's eye view. You might be able to find some things, but your coach might even be able to add in other things you weren't thinking. So, like I said, if you work alongside somebody with it, you're gonna really be able to see it. And this can go with like, think about your thoughts and all like these scenarios are all a little different, but think about it. It can go just mindset things that your mind believes. It could be like nutrition thoughts, it could be workout thoughts, it could be life thoughts, it could be literally anything because all of these things impact who we are in our life and where we're going. So, anywho, I say all of that before we start the scenarios because I have like five, but this is like just scratching the surface. So, here's a scenario, obviously super simple. You've been consistent all week. You step on the scale, it's up 1.5 pounds. Your chest is immediately like, what? The thoughts, like, right? What in the heck? Like, I'm going backwards. This isn't working, right? That's the initial thought. Because somewhere in your past, you've stepped on the scale and it has gone up. And most likely it was because you weren't consistent, right? Because you may have eaten something crazy. Like, I remember when I used to binge eat and then I'd go step on the scale, it was like reinforcing, like, see how bad you were, see, and look, now you're going backwards. Like, I literally did that on purpose. So this is where we get to challenge, right? We use our T chart to challenge this thought. So it's not, I'm going backwards, it's not working. So here is an example, right, of our T chart. So the thought challenge over here. Now these challenge are more like my own coach brain questions popping up. You can just literally think in this scenario, right? This is where you're in the chrysalis. Um, what evidence do I have that's coming up to justify that, like, this isn't working, right? So the scale went up, right? That's where most of our brains would go. Like, well, the scale went up, so it's not working. Um, I expected it to go down because I was consistent. In the past, the scale going up meant I was off track, right? It feels like my effort doesn't produce the result I wanted. Boom. All of that feels very real, right? All of that real, right? Real. There's nothing there that I'm saying is not true. Now, the opposite part is we needed to get more of, okay, I found all this evidence, which is what our brain is designed to do. But now I need to challenge this thought. This is the real challenge, right? That's not the challenge. This is the challenge. What evidence do I have that shows that this thought is not true? So I have been consistent with my actions, right? I'm not going backward if I'm being consistent with my actions. I'm logging everything I'm eating, I'm training, I'm getting my steps in, I'm getting my water in, I'm doing all of these things and being really consistent. I'm not binging anymore, right? Like, I mean, we could just, whatever the thing is. Now, other things that my brain could challenge is like, I'm about to start my cycle, or my sleep has been off, or like, I haven't had a bowel movement in 3 days. Those things are 10,000 percent going to impact the scale. Or maybe you went out to eat and you had, a bunch of, like, my brain goes to usually going out to eat. It's either super fatty or super salty. And both of those can mess with digestion and water retention and all of that. So if we start listing out the facts, or like, I had alcohol, then we have a picture of, okay, well, am I really going backwards? Did I really regress, or am I just having a normal weight fluctuation, right? And we have evidence that we're not going backwards, right? It's not like, well, I said screw it and I was binging. I like, maybe that is something you were doing. I'm not here, but the change in the thought of, like, I'm going backwards, right? This isn't working. It's like, this is data, right? This is data that's helping us know how to move forward. And especially your coach, right? That's why you have a coach, which makes it a lot simpler because, yes, while it might feel confusing to you, there's a lot more here. And the beauty is, if it's like, this isn't working, right? Or this isn't working, you can step back and be like, that's not true, right? Because you are working, but there were some variables that were off. So it's like, that's not true. So that first thought might pop up and we start to challenge it with, like, hey, that's not true. This is just data. And there's, multiple things here that shows, even if I was consistent, that maybe my data is just fluctuating and off this week. That doesn't mean it's not working. So this is where we can start challenging some of those thoughts. Again, with a real person and real scenarios, it can dig a little deeper. Here's another one. You've been doing this for months, and I could even say years, right? Like months, years, whatever. You see someone on Instagram who has been doing it about the same time as you, right? And they look like they're ahead of you, right? They've made more muscle growth or lost more weight or insert the thing here. They've grown their booty more, whatever. And now everything you've done just feels like not good enough or small, like just meh. So the thought that pops up is I'm not where I should be for the work I've put in. Now, with this is there we go. Um, is this thought 100% true? Okay, so here's like I said, we're good at finding the evidence for the thought, why we're believing it. So I want to build more than I already have. I saw someone on the internet who showed more progress than me, faster progress than me. I have been putting in effort consistently. I have made changes. I have made sacrifices. That's all justifying why you feel like you should be further along. Now, fact, other facts against this thought, right? We're now looking for reasons that this thought isn't true. I should be further ahead, right? I am not where I should be. I should be further ahead. Same kind of thought. Um, I have been working on my habits. I've come a long way from where I started. I am more consistent with my life and finding life balance. I'm not willing to do extremes to see results. And I don't know who this person is or what they are doing to get their results because the internet will show you highlight reels. And even I think the more and more people are seeing, it's like now with even like the GLP-1s and all you don't know what they're doing. And so it's like, wait a minute, do I know this person? Do I know everything about their life? No, not even everybody on the internet is showing you everything they're showing you their highlight reel, right? They're showing you the best case scenario. So the biggest thing is that's like with this thought is like, yes, you can put in consistent work, but that doesn't necessarily mean you should be light years ahead. We know that this journey takes time. I could have put way more thoughts. Like I could have put way more evidence stacked against this. But I think it's like changing your thought of like I am exactly where my current habits have built me and I'm continuing to upgrade them, right? I'm continuing to improve. And that is the way we start again. If this thought didn't be believable, we wouldn't change it to this. We would play around with some other thoughts. But this is where we start. Anytime this old thought comes up, that's where we bring in this second thought and change it. Okay. Anyway, you overeat one night. Nothing extreme, but it really does trigger frustration. And you're like, see, I keep doing this. I'm not learning anything. Like I just keep messing up. And we think something like I should have figured this out by now, right? So evidence, it's like, okay, cool. Well, we ate more than we planned. You didn't like how you felt afterward. You've been practicing and doing this for a while, and you know what to do. This isn't new. And you've had phases where you were more consistent. So you had plenty of time where you're like, I was on a roll, I was on a streak, I was doing really well. And now, now see, I screwed it up. Guess what? We get to be human. You're never gonna just be perfect. Fact against these thoughts, right? You got back on track the next day. You binge ate for 20 years. You overate, but you didn't binge. You haven't overate and binged in months, and you're being consistent with your day-to-day habits. That's showing that this thought, like, I should have figured this out by now, is not true. You are figuring it out and you are working through it, right? You're refining, you're not failing. This is part of learning how to master it. And guess what? I could have even written here, like, in a different thought, is like I said earlier, like, I'm human, I'm not a robot. There's going to be moments where, like, literally all people overeat, but are we doing it all the time? right? When I used to binge eat, I used to binge eat all the time. I haven't binge ate in I don't know how long. Like I don't have like a time thing anymore. There's probably a time I was like counting it, like, oh, I haven't binge eaten this long. It's not who I am anymore. Now, have I overeaten? Yeah, 100%. Have I eaten a little bit more than to like my fullness? Yes, but even then, does that happen all the time? No, that happens like very like every once in a grand while. And I also don't love it because it doesn't make me feel good. So it's these things, it's like, wow, I am figuring it out. This thought isn't true at all. I am figuring it out. I just want to be further ahead, right? Which makes sense because you want to be her and you want to be in that place. And I think this is where we just keep getting, again, if this thought doesn't work, we keep playing around with some different thoughts. But then anytime that thought pops up, I should have this figured out by now. We're like, no, I am figuring it out. I'm just refining it and I'm getting better at it. And it takes practice and time. Boom. Um, oh, I forgot to change the number. Scenario 4. Oh no, this is the same scenario, but what I did is this is I think the other thought is like I should be further ahead or I just need to try harder, right? I think is like I need to like tighten up. Like I need to not have any fun food or any alcohol or I should because you overate one night, right? Or you had a moment. Now, here's the thing here. You ate more than you planned. The same thoughts kind of pop in. Like I didn't like how I felt afterwards, but when I try harder, I can be more disciplined, right? Like when I try harder, I'm more disciplined. Or I have periods where I was more strict and I saw results, right? All your evidence saying like I just need to try harder. But other like facts against this was like I didn't include a food I wanted. Like I didn't make space for the cupcake, right? Trying harder works until it doesn't. It does not help me keep consistent. You're on, you're off, you're all over the place. I'm doing old patterns because I know it worked for me temporarily, but the reality is I'm still, whenever I try to restrict or go harder, I don't actually, I'm in the same loop. I keep doing the same things. I'm not actually stepping out into the butterfly. Like, so this is holding me back. So it's like, maybe it's I don't need to try harder, right? I actually need a plan that works with my life, that keeps me consistent because restriction isn't working. All right. And then you're tired, work was a lot, kids, life, whatever. And you're staring at your plan thinking like, why is this just feel so hard to do? And you're like, this shouldn't be this hard, period. So, facts for your thought. You're tired, you're stressed, you're overwhelmed. You've been doing this for a while and you feel like you should know what to do by now. Other people make it look easy. You've done hard things before. Why aren't you able to do it now? Okay. Now, evidence against your thought. Okay, you had a hard day with lots of obstacles, and that means for anybody, things are going to have to shift. You're changing your habits, which takes time, and I just want it faster, right? I'm not just following a plan, I'm also changing my patterns and my behaviors. Hard doesn't mean complicated, it just means unfamiliar. Or, when things are hard, we know we're going to do what feels cozy because the brain doesn't want any more resistance. It's had to fight all day long, and it's like, I don't want to have to fight anymore. So, hard doesn't mean bad, new thought. Hard means I have obstacles and I'm working through them and I'm getting the opportunity to work through them. So, it's like, this shouldn't be this hard. It's like, when we're changing, things are going to feel harder. But the more we do it, the more we practice it. If we only do the hard things when life is easy, then it's not going to work, period. And then scenario 5, end of the day, you have some macros left, you're tired, you want something off plan. So your brain starts negotiating, like, oh, it doesn't matter, like, you deserve it. Those are my favorite. So this is where, evidence for your thought. You're like, hey, I stayed within my macros earlier today. I was good all day. The other thoughts that might pop up is like, it's just one night. It's not like though I'm doing this every day of this week. I've been really consistent lately. This one choice won't ruin my progress. I'm tired, I'm stressed, I'm drained. I just need this is like self-care. I need to just take a time out. Evidence against your thought, right? It's like, I've said this before and it did matter to me later, right? Like, actually, it did matter when I just said screw it. I don't feel proud after I give in. I actually feel worse. I feel frustrated or upset or guilty or shame. Um, if it truly didn't matter, I wouldn't feel this internal conflict right now. Or I know I can always have food. Why do I feel I need to earn it, right? Or I deserve it. You can have food whenever. So my goals, so instead of like, it won't matter, I deserve this, it's like my goals and feelings, my goals and feeling good matter to me. I deserve to feel proud of myself later, right? This is where we can, like, again, conditioning this. It could also be like, hey, maybe I need to plan in a fun food and know that, like, I can, like, make this work into my day. I have some macros left. I can, like, tweak things around or even add it in tomorrow or add it in every day next this week. Um, this is why it's so powerful, right? You will be able to notice how fast thoughts come in. They feel automatic, they feel believable. Those initial thoughts are our conditioning, and they're conditioned in there because they've been for the longest time. So they will feel automatic, they will feel true. That's just the caterpillar. That's your old identity trying to keep you stuck. And so, this piece where you feel that tug of war and dissonance, that's where you're being in the chrysalis. You are literally decomposing and getting rid of that old identity so you can step into the new one. And that doesn't mean we won't touch into that caterpillar state from time to time, but you don't do it frequently. Our goal is to be the butterfly. And so the goal isn't to never not have the thoughts. I think that's what we think, like one day I just will never have this thought ever, ever again. And that's not true. The goal is to stop letting them make your decisions. That's the piece that we're working to shift because the thoughts will most likely pop up. I've talked about lots of thoughts, but one thought that, like, I've really worked on over the years was like I used to call myself an idiot. I know you've heard me say this. And um I have, my change thought was like, no, I'm not an idiot. I'm human. I'm not a robot. I get to make mistakes, right? I still, and not often, but every once in a blue moon, I do have moments where I'm like, you idiot. And I'm like, whoa, that's weird. Because it's not one of those like thoughts that like it used to just pop up all the time. And I justify it. I was like, this is why you're an idiot, right? But over time, I was able to challenge it. And then I changed it to like, no. But like immediately now, it's like that automatic switch happens where I'm like, whoa, no, that's weird. Because that old thought I thought was dead, it still pops up from time to time. But I have now a really quick automatic response like, that is real weird. That feels off. And that's also a good sign that you have merged into that butterfly too, where it's like, whoa, what is this? Where did you come from? That's weird. And so the goal isn't that you're never going to have these thoughts. You will. They will pop up, even ones you thought like, Psh, I'm done with that. The goal's just to stop letting them make your decisions. So this will actually, the tool, the catch challenge change is just going to help rewire your brain. It's going to help you change these thoughts and allow you to be able to step into that new identity without just constantly being like, well, I'm just stuck in that caterpillar state. Um, So anyway, obviously, when we get into butterfly world, this is like I said earlier, like it is freedom. Like when you're the butterfly, you can fly and go the distance and go wherever. But I think something to remind yourself is even as you become the butterfly, like you're exiting the chrysalis, like your wings are wet and you can't quite fly yet. And even as you're stepping more and more into that identity, there still will be a little bit of a struggle. Even when you're like, I'm feeling better, like I'm attacking this thought and I'm feeling powerful, it's still going to be that zone where it's not going to be perfect, right? So, like I said, like your wings are wet, you have to let them dry and then you have to strengthen your wings and then you have to learn how to fly and you're going to be vulnerable and you have to go into these like learning and again learning how to be the butterfly. So even as you like feel like you're stepping out of that like tug of war dissonance, that breakdown, that decomposing state and into the butterfly, just know that even the butterfly is not going to be like, oh, it's perfect. um because really being the butterfly, it's not about like it's not a destination, which I think sometimes we're like, when I get here, that's it. It's like it's about the becoming and the evolving, right? It was about becoming the butterfly. And the reality is we go back as we like enter the butterfly and like go fly away and do our thing, there's probably another journey that you're starting to head on. And even as you've grown and evolved, like I look at myself and I'm like, man, even in the past year, 2 years, three, I have changed so much because I keep going back to the caterpillar, right? I keep going back to that caterpillar and working through these new identities and working through and shifting. And I think that's the coolest part is we get to keep like on this relentless pursuit of betterment, right? This we keep growing, we keep evolving. Um, and we keep having all the thoughts. But that's the cool part. This tool we can use all the time. And yes, while it does take a little bit of work, the payoff over time, you'll get faster and better. So the big thing is every challenge, every setback, every trigger, right, leads us to this question. Do you want to confirm the old identity, right? The old you, or do you want to elevate into who you actually are? Right? Like we said, the caterpillar was already within who you actually are. It if it feels hard, that's not a bad thing. I think sometimes we feel like it shouldn't feel hard. And it's like, what is your body trying to communicate with you right now? When it feels hard, it means that you are doing, right? That you are experiencing growth, that you are experiencing change. And anytime you've had change in your life, it's never been like, oh, that was easy. It's felt hard, it's felt challenging. But every time you've done it, you've grown and evolved and you've just blossomed into something different and better. So instead of asking, like, why is this happening to me again? Right? Or why is this happening? It's really reframing, like, what version of me is trying to retire? Right? What version of me is trying to outgrow this? Because that's really what's happening. Your body's just like, we're in the chrysalis and we are changing. So we are finding who we are not so we can find who we are and really step into her. Um, and just final thoughts because I really do love this butterfly thing. I'm really big about butterflies. Um, the caterpillar isn't wrong and it was never wrong, right? It's just not who you are anymore. And every time you believe an old thought, you stay there. You stay with her in that caterpillar state. Every time you challenge it, you step into that new identity you're working so hard to. And over time, the more and more you practice and more you challenge it, the more you're going to just reveal and rebuild and shape her. Because without the chrysalis, right, without that part of the process, you stay the same. If we don't break, right, if we don't decompose, then we're just going to stay in those old places. And that's not who you are. So, this piece, just know we all go through it. And as somebody who like prides myself, right? As somebody is like, I really do live by the motto, like this relentless pursuit of betterment. I still go through these stages, the caterpillar state, the chrysalis to the butterfly, and I'm still doing it now. Even as I went through my last prep and I was like really proud of everything we brought and how we came and everything. I am now feeling like, even right now where we are, I'm at that caterpillar state. And I am working to kind of break down some of these thoughts and things that are holding me back from leveling up even more. And that's all I want to do. So I'm having, even now, to work through a lot of these things. And I'm doing these T charts, and I've been doing these T charts for a long time. So use this tool, the Catch Challenge Change, to keep you evolving into who you're supposed to be. Cool. And like I said, one, if you want to work through it with me, send me a message. Two, if you have any trainings that you'd like to see, please let me know. I want to make sure I'm always, serving you guys with what you want. And I want to make sure um, I always want to make sure I am like touching on those things too. So please let me know. You can send me a message or drop it below. And I look forward to next time. Hope you have a really beautiful day.